Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Community Call. I don't think we have much updates, but we'll go through the team. So whoever has something to share, um, and then we'll give the open mic. George.
Yeah, so in the past couple of weeks, I have been working on a comparison between Jitsi Meet and Zoom. So this is almost done. We are processing the data. We will have probably something up on the jitsi.org website soon. So stay tuned for that.
Thanks. Boris, you have anything?
Nothing much. There's a lot of progress going on with the new bridge work, but I think Brian is in a much better position to talk about it.
All right.
He's doing most of it.
Thanks. Jacob, do you have anything to share?
No, there's going to be some minor changes coming to the Slack integration, but it's just copy for the less confusion. Somebody mentioned in the mailer, so shouldn't be any big changes, but nothing yet.
All right, thanks. Lenny?
Yeah, the room integration stuff is going pretty well. We're wrapping up our beta for the front end.
Thanks. Kristen?
I guess I don't have anything interesting from my side.
Other than you fix the Dropbox with the Electron.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. This is probably good, and also the Google authentication got fixed by itself. I guess Google released new version of their library. What else? Yeah, I don't think I have anything more.
All right. And I was working on the recording buttons in the UI, so there's some redesign, and you will be able to use Gbreeze to store whatever you have configured and Dropbox at the same time. So this will come in today and the following days. So that's it basically for me. Aaron, do you have anything?
I can't think of anything specific to the community for me, no.
Thanks.
I guess the most interesting update comes from the person who is not here. So, Damien, do you want to talk about it, or he has pasted a list of specific features and fixes that he has pushed to the App Store. Basically, we have a new App Store release, a new release for the mobile app.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay. Well, so we have a new Android app. Apparently, we have added support for chat. We have support for Siri shortcuts. That's pretty great. We have added a top bar with conference information, a bunch of new features, and a few fixes. So, yeah, it's more better and more exciting, as Saul would have said, I suppose.
Thanks for the update. Pavel?
I don't think I have anything other than what Lenny said.
Thank you. So I guess that's all.
I'm
update.
I'm here, Damien. I think I reinstalled the app, so I don't think I have my stuff set. But
Yeah.
like Boris said, we've got he's done a bunch of work on the new bridge, and initial Octo stuff is in, and a bunch of fixes. I've been looking at memory performance stuff, which has been a little stubborn, but is slowly coming together. So we're winding down, but we have a lot of perf stuff left, and that can be tricky. So we're we're going to be, Boris is working on finishing up a bunch of feature stuff, and I'm looking at performance stuff. So we're converging on all that.
Thanks. So anybody else from the team? No? Open mic. Any questions?
Hi, this is Paul. How's it going? Very excited about hearing the progress on the new JVB stuff. It's not really a question, but I'm curious if there's sort of a new estimated time frame for when a early beta might be ready. But my main question is, we're working on we've kind of moved past some of the issues we had on the recording side, using JVB, sort of a slightly forked JVB recording. One of the things that we're trying to support is more accurate mixing of the audio streams, specifically in the recording. And so we, as the initial implementation, we were just relying on the sender reports and RTCP packets for timing information. But since we can't rely on the NTP clocks being, or the local clocks being synced, we're wondering if there's been any investigation of supporting an implementation that attempts to synchronize those clocks to get more accurate timing data across streams from separate endpoints. I know there's some standards that exist for leveraging STP or stream level specification of a clock, and then there's sort of JavaScript approaches that try to use a data channel to sync. But yeah, I'm wondering if this has come up before. I think most of the syncing right now is happening just in the jitter buffer.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, how's it going?
So to answer the first question first, we are, in the next couple of days, we're going to create an environment and install the new bridge there for testing purposes. You can already build it and run it nlj-jtb branch. We're trying to keep it at least running.
Cool.
There's bugs, but it's running. You will need to manually download a couple of repos and install them with Maven. I think in the coming 1 or 2 weeks, we should have progress there, making this more exposed.
That's great. That's amazing. What are those repos that we would need to clone separate repos?
There's 4 of them. Sorry, 3 additional ones. Jitsi Media Transform, Jitsi RTP, and SCTP4J. I'll paste links in the chat in a second.
Boris, he'll also need that branch of libjitsi, which has a couple changes. So maybe you can paste that one too. I'm in the car.
Okay, will do. So I'll paste the links in a minute here. And they are going to change. We know that we need to change the SCTP4J name because there's already a project with that name. I think the others are set. We just need to push them to the Maven repo. As far as the second question goes, or did you want to talk more about this?
If you post,
Hey, Paul, are you still there? Are you still there, Paul?
Yeah, I'm still here. Did I break up?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, if you paste the links, that'd be great.
Yep, I just need to find them, and I'll do that afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you.
So about synchronizing clocks between endpoints, our thinking was exactly what you mentioned, that the most drift there could come from the jitter buffer. And because of that, we in the recorder RTP info somewhere, we actually take the time that we receive the first RTP packet of the stream before it enters the jitter buffer, and we use that as an anchor point. And we found that this worked pretty well for us. This and honoring the RTP timestamps and filling in silence as necessary.
Okay, so you're referring to the synchronizer in the recorder RTP that uses the local time and the send and report time and the RTP time?
The synchronizer is used to synchronize between two streams from the same source. That would be audio versus video. In order to reduce the drift or the delay between multiple endpoints, there's code somewhere which takes the time of reception of the first RTP packet for the stream. I can look that up for you as well. Just a second.
Okay, yeah, that would be amazing. Because we were thinking of just taking the some of what was done. I know that the synchronizer was really designed for something different, but like for specifically syncing the audio and media streams from a single endpoint. But yeah, so anything along those lines would be helpful. And so one more question on this is, so in taking that first time from that packet, is it still syncing that or anchoring that to the local time of the server?
Yes.
In other words, okay, so that's how, if the clock is way off, that's how it would, if the local clock of the client is way off, that's how that would be normalized. So basically, it's the RTT times, sort of the transfer time, that latency, coupled with the anchored time that represents the receive time, that can be used to kind of estimate what the local time is on the machine relative to the server, if that makes sense.
Yes, so we anchor the local time, the server time, at the time of reception of the RTP packet to the RTP timestamp.
Cool. Okay, that's great. Sorry, one last thing is there, because one of the things that we were looking at in terms of getting even more, because there's always going to be some level of fuzziness just because you can't perfectly estimate RTT time, and it's not that RTT time isn't constant necessarily. Is there a recommended way to determine what peers are local? So in the case where you have a bunch of people who are on the same local network, to try to optimize that timing. I mean, I guess we would have to do that with ICE, but we need like a separate sort of ICE flow to get those up and running.
What would you do differently? What would you do differently for people who had a local thing? Like, do you have to care?
Well, just in those cases, I was wondering whether we could optimize it further by doing a sync between just all of those local clients. So, for example, if there were like 5 peers on the same network, we could try to get those clients synced together, and the RTT time between them would be much smaller, given that they're on the same local network. So, only it's more because we have a mechanism to do that, but I guess because everything is going through the JVB, and that's our primary use case, especially given recording, we always, we don't really even want a normal P2P flow, even in the case of, there being only two clients, two endpoints. But I was wondering whether there is a way to sort of, even though everything is kind of centralized going through JVB, if there is also still a way to have a direct local P2P conversation.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
I mean, in Jitsi Meet, there's not. I mean, there's obviously plenty of ways to implement that, but we don't have any P2P mesh sort of a thing in Jitsi Meet. So that'd be like an entire application layer you'd have to put on top, basically.
Yeah, like that's what I figured. We would need to just basically have like a separate connection, and probably and basically establish a separate data channel connection between two peers, which is probably a lot of overhead, not worth it. Yeah, I was just trying to figure if there's a way to optimize the timing further if there's a situation where a bunch of people, because we will have a situation where there's a bunch of locally connected peers.
I would think if you were going to do that, you might as well just implement do something there and then do the data channel syncing to the bridge. Because at least with that, you end up with a generalized solution that would work regardless of the client networks anyways. And it's probably just as complex than it is to handle just a bunch of the same peers happen to be on the same network type of thing or something. I mean, it's a hard problem as you clearly know, so it's kind of tricky. I wonder though if getting serious drift between clients, like the playback of the audio between clients is way out of sync from how it originally was, or is it like pretty close but just not perfect?
It's pretty close, but we've seen some cases where it's off by a few seconds. But I think I think in that case, we weren't really taking into consideration the RTT time. So we're really just basically using the anchored time. And we haven't done the other. We're missing a step basically.
I wondered if you got that stuff in, you'd end up with something that works pretty good most of the time. And I don't know, maybe getting that last few percent of perfection is always tough regardless of the problem. So maybe if you get the RTT stuff, that would end up being good enough.
Yeah, and then I think the last leg would be we can leverage the active speaker data to adjust the volumes in a mix, which I think will get us the rest of the way. I mean, the only other option I think would be to do some sort of like post-processing echo cancellation to try to, because I think that's the biggest issue is when people are in the same room, which in our scenario happens, being off by 100 milliseconds, you can hear it because there'll be echo because about the same signal will get picked up across multiple mics. So getting it as close to below 20 as possible is ideal.
And all the clients do broadcast a bunch of stats over data channel that get sent to all other clients. Maybe there's something there. Maybe you could piggyback on that a little bit to add your kind of clock sync logic or something. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I mean, I think I've done a fair amount of research into what within other WebRTC approaches or even just outside of WebRTC, how people are syncing clocks, and I think it's basically just constant syncing from peer to server, server to peer back. And as long as it seems like as long as you're in constant feedback, you get that feedback on a regular basis, you can prevent drift and skew. But that's the part that we're really missing. So we'll give it a shot, and I'll report back how that works.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Ben. I have a question about the Jitsi client, which is, I see that there is in the middleware of the conference, so the middleware JS of the conference, that there is a handler getting registered that has been there since August last year, and it has a big sort of fix me to do on there. And what it does is before unload of the window, it sends the conference will leave action, or essentially the hang up to the conference. And I'm wondering, what is the recommended way for scenarios where you might think like your browser crashes or something else, something where we don't get a clean before unload. Is there anything in, let's say, JVB or Jikofu that realizes that certain some client is not responsive anymore and sort of kills that stream? Is there anything? Is there any auto hang up already happening, or is it always relying on a hang up getting sent from the client?
No, it's so basically all the connections from the clients to the server are using Bosch, and by default, Bosch works on 60 seconds timer. So if that happens, and for 60 seconds there is no Bosch packets coming in to process it, that connection will be dropped, and you will see the participant list. So this is what we currently have. We plan to work more on that, and in the following months to implement something more, so it can be even instantaneously, not to wait 60 seconds. But this is some future work that we're planning to do.
But even if the client did not send the hang up, then we should not see some phantom participants or something like that.
Currently, you will see that for 60 seconds.
60 seconds. Okay, and okay, so that was one. I have just one other little question. So in our scenarios, we have speakers sometimes being not using headsets, or they're not really close to the microphone. Do you have any recommendations, for example, disabling the noise suppression or one of those settings in the client? Is there any recommendation you have for that? One of those processing flags. Any ideas about that?
I think everything is on by default. I know that we have some more flags for like enabling stereo, and if you enable stereo, like echo cancellation stops working. That's why everything is currently the default one will activate everything in the browser. So if the browser is not capable of removing the noise or the echo, we cannot do anything about it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Lewis. I have two questions. They're kind of unrelated. First one is around best practices for scaling Jitsi, or if scaling Jitsi is even necessary.
Yeah. So Jitsis you can use with a Mac room. So there is a property you can configure in Jikofu, and Jikofu will discover Jitsis from that room. So you can start like, I don't know, a lot of Jitsi instances, and
Would
yeah.
they each use would each Jitsi instance use the same SIP URI and SIP server, or do they need to have different SIP URIs and SIP servers? Like, will there be a conflict if you have multiple SIP servers?
For the conference, it doesn't matter. It matters what does your SIP provider supports, how you will configure it there.
And are you specifically talking about incoming or outgoing calls?
Incoming.
Okay, so for incoming, your provider is the one that's selecting the Jitsi. Is that correct? At least in our current model, we have an algorithm where we decide which Jitsi to use during the incoming call in logic that is outside of Jitsi.
Let me see.
So for outgoing, the Jitsis sit in a muck, and Jikofu will load balance them. And Damien, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's based on streams. But for incoming calls, I believe that is entirely on whatever algorithm you're using to choose your Jitsi for the incoming call. And that is going to depend entirely on how you're managing your Jitsis and how you're your provider selects one.
Yeah, we specify the URL. Yeah, so in the response, exactly, we specify the SIP. In the SIP response, we're specifying it with the room name and then the SIP user and URL. So I guess if you have multiple Jagasis configured with the same SIP URL, that's probably not going to work then, because
Well, it really totally depends on what your provider is going to do when an incoming call goes to that SIP URL. Is it doing round robin to all the accounts that are on it? Is it ringing to all of them? You know, you're just going to have to look at how it performs.
Gotcha. Okay, so perfect. Thank you. That's the exact answer. I appreciate that. The second question is around the JVB REST API, and if there is a way to, if you wanted to delete a conference or remove a single user from a conference without using the kick mechanism from the UI, more from like an administrative standpoint, from like a backend REST API, only accessible from our internal VPC or whatever. Is there a way to do it without, like, it looks like the only endpoint is a patch to /conferences. So do we need to take like the existing response and rebuild?
Doing this at the JVB level, like you could force expire, an endpoint basically, but that's kind of going to be cutting the endpoint out from the legs, like without knowing, because Jacofo won't know about it. So it won't be the most graceful way to do it directly to JVB. Because that's kind of at the media level. Usually what happens is the endpoint leaves, Jacofo knows about it, and then Jacofo tells Bridge, like, hey, you might as well, basically, you don't need to know about this guy anymore. He's left, and he's not going to need to do his media. The Bridge can tell, can find out about an expiration if the media times out. It's a little less graceful, but I don't know. Boris, or correct me if I'm wrong here, but you could just, set the expire value to 0, basically, to cut some on all the channels to quote unquote kick somebody from the Bridge's perspective.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I guess what I mean is, don't be surprised if that endpoint looks like he remains in the call for a bit longer, because there are other things that we'll have to kind of time out.
Yeah, I'm curious. So what is the best? Is there a better way to kick somebody, like from an administrative standpoint, without going through the lib to kick?
I suppose you could make it with a, if you know the JIT, you can make it with a custom module in Prosody that will be basically kicking that participant, as you will kick it from the menu. But you can make it with the REST through Prosody.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the simplest path towards that. That'll actually be a more, generally supported way to kick someone.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I have one little question about libjitsi meet. What do you have any plans to implement unified plan for Chrome? Because Safari also supports VP8 for now, but it comes with unified plan by default, with no ability to change it. Do you have any plan to modify that? And one little remark for Luis: you can manage admin users on Prosody on the Mac, on the MOOC multi-user chat, and then you can control presence of any room user without need to ping JVB for these purposes.
Great, thank you.
So about unified plan, yes, we to work on it in the following months, but I cannot give you any estimation time when this will happen. And yes, as we were talking, we were planning to work on all the aspects of it, like checking what is the status of Firefox simulcast, I suppose, and Safari. So this is still work to be done.
Okay, that's all.
Thanks. Anybody else? Going once, going twice.
Just
Hey,
yes.
sorry. What? Just to follow. This is Paul again. So Boris, what was? Where did you say that line was to capture the first frame?
Right. That's what I wanted to bring up. I'm looking at the recorder RTP info and I cannot find it. It's either just not obvious or it's not there, and I don't know which one right now. I remember doing it because otherwise we would it wouldn't work well. But I can't find it right now. I'll look some more and send an email if I can find it, but I don't have much time right now. So
okay. I'll just leave my email in the chat.
All right.
That's all right.
Yep. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay, I just sent it. And one last quick thing that just reminded me. So I think a few meetings ago we talked about not using for related to the recorder RTP, changing the two effects, the silence effect and the active speaker detection effect, to not require linear audio. I think from there we kind of we were discussing how the active speaker detection can just use the audio levels in the header and in the RTP header, and the silence effect is also just sort of like looking for drop packets and such. But was there something else? Like, so is there? Because I think we kind of talked about it a little bit more in the community forums, but I wasn't clear on the last post. What is preventing us from doing that now? Like, can we safely rely on the audio levels in the RTP packets instead of doing the audio levels just by analyzing the audio? And I guess the question follow up to that is why was that the approach for the recorder RTP? Like, why not use the audio levels in the header? Wouldn't that have been simpler?
I don't remember why that was the approach, but we have been using the audio levels from RTP in the bridge for years, and that's stable. So that should be really easy to replace.
And also there was a time when that was not available, where we were using just the desktop client with the bridge, or just the desktop client mixing audio. So we were using those in that environment without WebRTC. So it may be from that era.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious because it seems harder to do it that way and more constraining, but that would explain it. Great, thank you.
No worries. Else?
Yeah, I have a question. Can one user mute another user without that the user is muted for all the users they are in this channel? So in this conference?
Yes. The way you would do it is you would adjust your local volume for that user. So you just hover over the user, look at the little 3-dot menu, and then take their local volume all the way to 0.
Okay. But the iframe API is not supporting it right now, I guess.
No, there is no API for that, just the UI.
All right, thank you.
Any questions, comments? I'm stopping. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
2 weeks.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.